I think it's really important that you guys realize that this is Don's favorite thing, okay? I've worked with him, I've only known him and worked with him for 3 years, but the most enthusiastic thing he does is this. He loves talking about this with the people that he loves the most, and it's you. He loves connecting with you, and he would just love nothing more than for everyone to realize truth and to return to their authentic self. I think he'll go on, he'll explain a little bit more what his intentions are, but from what I've learned from him, that is truly what he wishes for everyone. I think a lot of us know that we are extremely fortunate to have Don with us here today. Some call it luck, some call it divine. I think if you ask Don, he'll just say, he's not done with me yet, and I've got some stuff to do. And I think that's why we're here today. We ask that you just simply open your minds, open your hearts to what Don receives and to what he gives. Open your imaginations to the mysteries of spirituality, religion, science, and what we think of the world. With that, please welcome to the stage with a big, enthusiastic welcome, Monsignor Don Fischer.
That was awesome. Hey, everybody. Hey. He lives. Okay. Well, I was going to give you a nice introduction about where I am and what I'm excited about today, and you captured it. You did it beautifully. The only thing I want to add to that is if you take a moment with me, and all of us together, closing your eyes is optional, but it helps sometimes. And I want you to think about one single thing. Inside of each of you is a heart that is much more than a pump, but it's something that holds something which is the greatest treasure we have. It holds divinity. The presence of God is in you. And the one thing that I want more than anything else is for you to allow God to fulfill what he chooses to do, and that is to share a ministry of bringing the world into a place of wonder and peace and truth. So just be aware of that and add one little thing, intention. And I want you to intend, as I intended, or always intend, that the people who listen to my words, when I'm fully in my role as a priest and as a friend and as a lover, I want you to feel something that is real. And that is your cooperation with God, saving the world from pain, fear, shame, into joy and hope. I'd like to open your eyes now, and then Priscilla and I have known each other since 2012, and we met at a language school in Italy. The story I love to tell about her is she was demoted after the test was taken, and I was in the intermediate class, and she was there to be in the intermediate class, and it was weird. So in front of everybody, this teacher gets up and says, everybody in here did really well on the exam except for Priscilla Koblenz. And would she please go downstairs to the elementary level? And I projected, I guess, what I would have felt like if that happened to me. And I said, oh, that poor person. So I meet her during the break. I said, can I take you to lunch? Do you need help? And she said, I am so glad to be out of that class and down here. So much for my rescuing. I did need rescuing. But she has been a part of my retreats for, gosh, ever since we met. And she missed the last one, but I just thought it would be great if she'd start with a song that we used when we're on retreat a lot. It's about the most amazing thing in this world that we don't realize. We swim in the world that is filled with creatures, angels, the dead, saints from the past. The world is deeply, deeply divine. Everything about it is the reflection of the divine. It's what the world has forgotten about, is the divine. But angels are one of my favorites, so would you sing, since you are an angel, would you sing my favorite song?
A man is placed upon the steps, and a baby cries. High above, you can hear the church bells start to ring. And as the heaviness, the body settles in. Somewhere you can hear a mother sing. Then it's one foot, then the other, as you step out on the road. Step out on the road. How much weight, how much? Then it's how long and how far and how many times. Oh, before it's too late. Calling all angels, walk me through this one, don't leave me alone. Calling all angels, we're trying, we're hoping, but we're not sure how. Oh, and every day you gaze upon the sunset with such love and intensity. Why, it's almost as if you could only crack the code, then you'd finally understand what this all means. But if you could, do you think you would trade in all the pain and suffering? But then you'd miss the beauty of the light upon this earth and the sweetness of the leaving. Calling all angels, walk me through this one, don't leave me alone. Calling all angels, we're trying, we're hoping, but we're not sure how. Calling all angels, walk me through this wall, don't leave me alone. Calling all angels, we're trying, we're hurting, we're loving, we're hoping, we're trying, we're calling, but we're not sure how this goes.
Woo! Thank you, Priscilla. You're a hard act to follow.
Yeah, really, like what are we supposed to do now?
Okay, it's over now when you leave. No.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Buongiorno. Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.
Would you like to offer a centering prayer?
I would. I already did.
You already did.
Yeah. Well, when I called everybody into an intention, that was my prayer, that everyone would have an intention, that whatever words I say, whatever things I am able to articulate for God, describing Him, which seems like a really big job. I mean, that's pretty awesome to say I'm going to explain God, but not explain Him, but make Him as present as I can, and that everybody would join in that intention. That was my prayer. Okay.
Good.
All right.
You had an amazing career as a parish priest in the diocese of Dallas. But it wasn't until you retired that you really started, I think, really your spiritual path really started to become enriched.
Yeah, it changed a lot.
What were some of the catalysts that started that?
Well, first of all, I don't know what it is about me exactly, but when I get in charge of something, I want to renovate it. I want it to be better, which is, it's not a bad thing to want, but so I have a kind of reputation that if I go somewhere, it's not going to look the same when I leave. Well, but anyway, so I found myself doing those projects along with everything else. It was like adding a job to a job. And it just kept me absolutely 100% busy. I just was going all the time. And you know what? There's something about that that makes life easier because you're not thinking about much. You're not thinking about who you are or what's really going on. You are just getting the next job done. I met when I was at the University of Dallas as chaplain a number of people on the faculty there that I fell in love with, and one of them was Robert Sardello. He's a therapist. He was my therapist for over 15 years. He's a Jungian analyst who has grown out of what you might call the psychological way of dealing with life. He said the only problem with that is it basically will show people where the pain is coming from or what's really going on in, which is all very essential. But he said, I wanted to talk about what you do when you get whole. What is it? So he opened this thing called the School of Spiritual Psychology to go beyond health of mind and into the heart. So when I was in some of his classes before I retired, and maybe because I retired, he would say to me, do you really want to keep working and working and working as you always work all the time? Do you want to really do that? Or do you another die with your boots on? Or do you want to retire? You seem younger than your age. You probably have many years left, I hope. And I think I will. I think that sounds really important. He said, well, what would you want to be? And he said, I know what I think you ought to be. And I said, what's that? He said, by nature, you're a spiritual teacher. And I don't know why that just hit me so clearly, but there's a difference between a pastor who's in charge of a parish, which is a big business, which is in the 80s and 90s, being a pastor was part, joy and part stark terror that you might get a phone call from somebody who said, someone in your school has done blah, 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 or not blah, 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 something awful to one of my children, to a child. And then you're sitting there knowing what's next. Anyway, spiritual teacher felt so good. Not being so busy, not being so afraid. And that's what I did, And the first lecture or workshop that I went to with Robert Sardello, and this was in 2009, actually, right before I retired, I had never, ever heard that there was something like the heart not being just a pump, but this organ inside of you and me is the center of our spiritual journey with God. It's a place that we know just physically, it resonates, an energy, electromagnetic field goes out 3-4 feet from your heart. And it has a resonance, a vibration that when you get closer to another person's heart, wherever your heart is in terms of its well-being, if it's agitated, if it's calm, you resonate that to the person across from you. And that was because that's what the heart, the body does, it resonates. And then I began to look more carefully at the words that I use every time I say Mass. The opening prayers always say, Lord, help this, Lord, help that. There was another insight that came, which is a little embarrassing. I think my entire priesthood, I thought we were praying to Jesus. And we're always praying to God when you do a sacrament. It's God who is in the host. Jesus is the model of who God is. And so when you see him operating, it's amazing that he had this resonance within him that was just, I mean, can you imagine? And the idea of, I don't know who to talk to. Could you sit here? No.
Sure.
No. But anyway, when, now I lost my train of thought. When I realized that the person that Jesus came into the world to reveal was not a man filled with divinity, that was part of it, but it was really, he was the first one that ever explained, showed, witnessed who God is. Jesus is a man who revealed the fullness of God. The man sitting next to me, Kyle, has kind of fallen in love with Scripture, and you read the whole thing.
Close. Getting there.
And it was, maybe I should just say, it was amazing to you how filled with wisdom it is. But there's one thing about the Old Testament that you don't have, and that's the fullness of who God is. And you say, well, okay, then if he had God in him, he must have known that. And we know that when he was 12 years old, he was pretty smart about Scripture. He knew the Scriptures really well. It was amazing to the people in the temple that were experts, scribes and Pharisees. But one of the things that I believe he wanted more than anything else, when he was 30 years old, he became aware of what this thing was inside of him, slowly, naturally, and he said, I'm ready. And he goes to John the Baptist and says, John, baptize me. And John says, whoa, no, I'm not going to baptize you. If you're the Messiah, I mean, yeah, you're without sin. He said, baptize me. And what happened at the baptism? What happens at any baptism? What does baptism symbolize? A God who looks at you and looks at me and said, you're my favorite. My favor and my love is with you. And I just love that image. And then when he started walking around as Jesus, filled with divinity in his heart, he saw people that were suffering. And every one of his miracles, it seemed, not all of them, the transfiguration was more of a miraculous thing that I can't explain exactly how it happened, but think about this, that almost every miracle is therapeutic. Eyes that see, ears that hear, mouth that speaks, hands that work, feet that get you where you need to be. Why would he spend his time in leprosy, which was a perfect major symbol of what happens to us when we don't believe in who we are? We're not even recognizable. You know the disease, leprosy, you don't even, it grows these things on your face and you can't be recognized. And And whatever you've got is clear to everybody, so you have to live outside of the city. It's a contagious disease, all of that. Such a great image of evil and fear, most especially. If I'm going to talk about evil, I'm always going to be real. I want you to realize I'm talking about a human heart filled with fear and shame and anger and resonating it to the world. When we're here to hold within us divinity, it resonates love, acceptance, support, the joy of discovering who you are. So that was really what Bob got me started on, and I just found, holy cow, I love this.
And this is where indwelling presence and our source of healing and excuse me, and giving
exactly
the flow.
And let me tell you, when I first found this, it's funny in a way. It was driving me crazy because I said, well, if I have this, if I can direct God's spirit into someone, who do I do it for? And when I do it, it's it was like this power in me that I have to find somebody. Tell me where you hurt, and I'll fix it. Well, that isn't the way it works. It's me allowing God to let the divine presence in me do a work that is called transformation, lifting one's consciousness, entering into a world where fear and shame diminish, and this goodness fills someone. Like the ultimate. There's a lot of people today going around saying, "What's true? I mean, is this true or is that true? What, who do you believe and who do you turn to?" And I remember being taught this: there is one absolute truth. You always know it's true. It's two words: God is. It's true. How's the world going? I don't know. Is it that's another whole way of imagining, but we live in a world that is going to be a reflection of who we become. If a world is filled with anger and, all this stuff, are we just going to pick that up and say, okay, that's what my heart is filled with, and that's what I'm going to share? I want to tell people who's right and who's wrong. And I want to attack those that don't think like I do and all that. We know that's where we are. And what a difference to believe that there is one truth, and it's God. And what is God doing? Anybody in here who thinks they're working to go to heaven and avoiding hell, you've missed the whole point. That's not what we're here to do. It's not about a reward at the end. It's about Jesus revealing God as the one who came into the world to finally free us from evil, from shame, from anger, from fear. And you know what he calls it and what we're working for? Not heaven or hell, or we're not working for hell, not working for heaven, but we're working to establish the kingdom of God. He used that term much more than he ever said heaven or hell. Kingdom of God. What is it? It's the end of evil in our world. Evil is going to be destroyed. And guess what happens before it's destroyed? It has to show its dark side. It has to show how destructive it is. And we're seeing that over and over, institution after institution is longing to be reimagined, rethought, or whatever. I mean, the Holy Father, the Pope, he's been amazing. He said, you know what? To the cardinals once, he had them in a room at Christmas time. I want you to know, my brothers, that you are the greatest enemy of the church that I want to establish. What? What did he say? What? He's got it. Why is everybody frowning? I don't know. No, it's really amazing. He did. He cleaned out the curia. He gave a term of office for cardinals that were in the curia. You have to go home at 75. Huh? Go home at 75. I like it here. There's no accountability here. This is all my buddies. He said, sorry. And now he's allowing lay people to take on any of the consistories, except for one. He's left for the priests. But it's not that he's getting rid of all the cardinals in those roles. It's just that he now can ask a woman to come in and be the head of some major thing that makes decisions about moral issues for us. And the guys there, I don't think are living in the same world that a family is.
And we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
That's right. Jumping ahead.
Always
we have an
jumping
outline.
ahead on me.
Okay.
You know, we got to see Dr. Sardello a couple of months ago, and he said something that really blew my mind. I was talking to Priscilla about this yesterday at lunch. He said, you know, we were created by the Creator to co-create creation with the Creator.
Got that?
And the thing that got me was, and creation has never stopped. And I mean, time stopped for me at that moment, and it made me realize, why did I think it ended on day 7? And he's right. We have a responsibility. We have, with our intention, with what we're doing,
Right.
what we perceive and how we see this is what we're creating.
Yeah.
And if we see a world that's terrible, it's going to be terrible. But if we see a world with hope, it has hope.
Exactly.
Years later, you would meet a person that would almost scientifically prove this.
Well, I was retired, and I thought, what can I do? And I had the radio program going and a few other things. And then I thought, well, you know, it'd be really cool to have lectures, you know, invite important people to Dallas and have them give a lecture. Well, I invited a man that I had heard about, but I didn't know if he would be interested in coming and helping me in my work. But his name was William Tillerâ. And William Tillerâ is a physicist, and he worked at Stanford for many, many years in what they call, not quantum physics, but mechanics, quantum mechanics. That was his field. And then he was driving with his wife, you know, on a vacation, and he looked at her, and Jean was her name, and he said, you know, Jean, I just don't think I want to go back and teach this year. And she said, what do you mean? She said, I want to prove the things I teach. And that's what I want to do. And when I say prove it, when he said that, what is interesting about quantum physics is that it's a theory, but it's a theory that is so radical, so new, so different, and it was discovered 100 years ago, and only now we're seeing some of the fruits of it, called AI, and that's all because of quantum physics. But there were 3 things that really blew my mind about the way the world works. And we're living in it, so we need to know how it works. So I can remember in high school or something, they said, everything vibrates. I said, well, the table's not, the floor's not. No, everything has resonance. Okay? All right, well, then what does that mean? He said, well, the basic thing is matter is made up of atoms. And atoms make up all matter. And atoms work in a particular way. And science before quantum physics was basically saying, if this happens, and then in this together, this always happens. You know, think of it as a black and white binary world in science, which says that we know what every outcome is going to be. Okay?
When conditions are perfect.
When conditions are perfect. When the rocket doesn't blow up, you know. But then he said, well, what quantum physics discovered is that atoms are not really the full story of what matter is, this matter, everything matter. It's also particles, and particles have a certain mysterious quality, and that is no matter what you do with them, you're never sure for sure what the result's going to be. In other words, it's kind of like, and this is the words that Einstein used, is he said, I can't believe this. It's like, does God just throw dice and then, you know, oh, this is now going to happen? You know, But think about it. When we enter into a world that is not black and white and easy to describe, you're going to feel these kinds of thoughts because they're true. Number one, particles act differently than atoms. And one of the things they can do is they can make a connection with you. Particles are, say you have, I had two beautiful sisters in front of me, and basically we're connected. Well, we're going to be connected no matter where we are. If one of them goes to the moon and my particles and here's in Dallas, and I have a change in that, it immediately happens in them. We are all interconnected by this system of particles. And what's fascinating about it is the thing that is connecting us has no connection at all with time or space. I've heard things like this when I was growing up, and it's kind of about this, like somebody is saying, well, I'll make it simpler first. You go to pick up the phone and it didn't ring, and the person on the other side said, "Oh, hi." She said, "I just was thinking about you. I was just thinking about you." What's that? Somebody thinks about you, and they live in Chicago, and you're living in Dallas, and you feel it. It's and I remember people saying, when someone they love is in trouble, is in some struggle or something, I just feel it. And you call somebody and says, "Is everything all right?" Well, all of that is, maybe the simplified version, but it's more intense and more amazing than that, because it means there is nothing that you do that is not impacting the people that you love. Nothing. There's no secrets between you and them about where you really are. That's called entanglement, And then the other one that really got me is when in quantum physics, if you look at, say, a dilemma, or not a dilemma, how would I put it? See, I don't really know quantum physics very well. Bear with me. But let's just pretend two things you're trying, the same things are out there in front of two people. And one people says, "I think this is what it is." And the other person says, "I think this is what it is." Well, I don't know how this works, but whatever you think something is, it becomes that. Doesn't that just go explosive in your brain about, you mean if I look at something, it becomes what I think it is? Yep. Now that's pretty frightening when you think about it too, you look at somebody like over there, no good guy, stupid guy back, and I make a judgment about them, and then they become that. Essence is particles. That's who they are. And you can change who somebody is. You all know how much it is important when you're in a family of origin to be loved as a child and not being used with all the right intentions in the world without being used to be something that you're not. And when somebody does that to you, the authentic self that you are inside gets dumped, and you become what you're told you should be. It's true of the church, the world, family of origin. That's what trauma is, and trauma will shut down your growth into who you're intended to be. Was there another one besides those two?
I think you got it. I think the thing that fascinates me about it, and what I've learned in my own journey in the quantum physics, is we don't know, and that we have to be open. We have to be open to.
Yeah.
I think Carl Sagan always talked about that. There has to be some level of mysticism. There has to be some level of we don't know. Otherwise, you're constricting yourself. You're putting yourself in this.
It's wonderful to have Kyle here instead of me up here by myself, and because he can pull me back. But the other one in quantum physics is so important that I forgot, and that is you are made of matter, particles, and you can exist exactly as you are, being a wave, energy. That one really got me. What? Say that again. You can be either material, or you can be walking around in this room and no one sees you, and you don't have any matter. That one is the one that made. It's funny. YouTube is interesting if you ever watch it. It's maybe 1% is true, but still, it's fun to watch. And but anyway, but you see something, life after death proven by quantum physics, because it means that you can actually exist as a spirit. Well, what I love about that, how about angels? What's the story about angels? Well, you get one for you. Really? You get one personal angel? Absolutely, you get that. Oh, it's incredible. What else? Well, they're constantly working to help you to be who God intended you to be. They're telling you things, showing you things, protecting you from accidents. They can take human form like that. That's what the Roman Catholic Church teaches. An angel has the ability to do that. It's pretty awesome. So that means that when we think about what we are engaged with in life, there is the possibility of the presence of someone who doesn't have a body being part of the work of growing and becoming yourself. In other words, I mean, when somebody said, my father died and then, after his death, I think I saw him, or something, or felt him. Of course you did. He didn't go away. The dead is also one of the things that Bob Sardello awakened me to. The presence of the dead is so important because they are there, they've known you, they've loved you, and they've made mistakes with you, and they have given gifts to you, and they're connected to you. So just because they died, does that mean they're not interested in how you're doing? So angels and the dead, for me, are all around me all the time. My parents are with me, helping me, undoing a lot of the things they didn't do. That doesn't make sense. Undoing the things I wish they'd done. And so anyway, it's just, those things just enrich my entire excitement about what we're doing right now. If we're working toward a kingdom that is without evil, man, are we ever seeing evil right now? And what would be the most logical thing? I went to the doctor and found out I have a tumor on my pancreas. And that was a couple of weeks ago. And I said, well, what is it? Well, we tried to figure out what it was and then couldn't figure it out. And then so a month later, we did the same biopsy thing, which was yesterday. And it's precancerous, okay? So what a miracle to find something growing on my pancreas pre-stage 1. Snip, snip. How about that? Now, when I think about that, how the hell did that happen? Why did they find it? And I guarantee you, not to get all this about my health, but I also had a fall and had a bad brain bleed. And that being in the hospital with all of that drew attention to this thing on my pancreas. And ta-da, I've got the best diagnosis you can get if you have a tumor. I hope if you ever have one that you have the same experience. I had to find it early. And so those things, is that just God working? Well, yeah, but then it's also maybe my parents who know and see so much more, because I don't believe I won't go into hell because I just kind of don't believe in it. But I do believe that you have the freedom to say no to God. That's hell. But that God is going to look at you knowing who he made you to be and the beauty of that, and then he sees you being abused or used in some cultural way or family way. Is he going to want to destroy you? No. He's going to want to heal you and embrace you and love you. That's what he wants more than anything. And anyway,
So all of that, the Sardallo, the indwelling presence, the heart-brain connection, quantum physics, the mysticism of it all, how does that relate to what our true intention is and us returning to our authentic selves? And what's the thing that's sticking?
well, the authentic self is an interesting image because it sounds a lot like be whatever you want to be, do whatever you want to do, and just be fine. It's not that at all. It's a real challenge to discover your authentic self. That's why I went to therapy for years. That's why I went to the Meadows for a treatment on codependency. All of those things I did helped me to somehow get to a more authentic me. Okay? What is most likely to be the fear of all of you in this room? What would be the? You don't have to raise your hand. What would be the most common anxiety you have? I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not handsome enough. Whatever it is, it's just lack. And here's what God, I think, has shared with me and what he wants me to tell you is he said, excuse me, I made you exactly the way you are. You're beautiful, absolutely beautiful to God. And he looks at that, he sees that all the time, yet we've been damaged and all this kind of stuff. He sees us being anxious over what we're saying, what we're doing. And I think to myself, God, that's just awful that we do that to ourselves. And I said, where does that come from? You know what I'm going to say next. Religion. Religion, I'm not talking about the beauty and the depth of the relationship we have with God, which I'm just going to call it Christianity, I guess, because Christ is the center of our religion for us as Christians. The part of religion that got me was my teacher in communion class in the second grade. And I'll tell you, it was traumatic when I think about it. But this me that was there was already not really me. It was somebody that was taking more responsibility than a child should. But that's my family of origin story. But what was happening was I was told God is God and he loves you. And if you do something that is wrong, God hates you. Didn't use those words, but how about this? God will burn you in hell forever. Sounds like hate to me, And I thought, this is amazing. And gosh. And then I just decided then and there I would be the best little boy that anybody ever met. I'm just going to be always doing what people I think they need. So it's where I got this sort of thing that drew me to the priesthood. I was taking care of my mother because my father didn't, and I was her friend and counselor and lover. Not literally lover, but that she wanted me to take care of her. And so I'm doing all of that. And then I find out that the God who is in charge is ready to kill me if I do something wrong. So I better do that job with my mother as well as I can. And then it carried over into my life that I believed that I had to be the best I could be always, so I wouldn't be hated by God. That was in me. Not articulated that way, but it was a minor, sometimes major anxiety that whatever he would ask me to do would obviously have to be perfect. He wasn't going to do it with me. That was not ever taught to me. I had to do it myself. And that was it's just awful. It's a terrible way to live. And religion, because it becomes, there's three things that religion does. It's to teach, Catholic Church teaches this, to teach, to rule, and to sanctify. To teach means scripture, doctrine. It's a wonderful thing. We have in the Catholic Church the greatest treasure of people struggling with these images of what is the incarnation, what is, all the doctrinal things that came to us through Old Testament and New Testament together. They're the perfect full story. And then it also sanctifies because of sacraments. I will tell you something the church did that I thought was really a bad thing for priests. But there was a time when people, Middle Ages maybe, were saying, well, how do we know the priest really believes when he's doing these sacraments? And the church said, oh, well, here's an answer. It doesn't matter if he believes or not. As long as he says the right words, that's it. Well, what does that make a sacrament? Magic. I can tell in a second when some priest is saying Mass or giving a homily, whether he cares, whether he intends something that's life-giving for us. Or is he just saying, oh, I have a homily to do? I remember going to one church in New York. I used to love to go watch priests. I know this is really sounding like, I'm better than that. I may not be good enough, but I'm better than that. Oh, really sick man. Anyway, but back to, he got up and it was, I forget what the gospel was. And he said, well, I'll make it up. This is a story about seed and the ground and everything. So what I'd suggest you do is go and think about that. And left the MO. That was the homily. And I said, well, gee, that didn't take a lot of prep, did it?
No deep reflection.
Yeah. But I can remember, at one time I was at St. Joseph's, and I was saying all the masses, all the baptisms, all the weddings. I mean, I was in heaven. I was just doing all this stuff. And I can remember somehow just thinking, when I said Mass 5 times on the weekend, not as I mean, you just could hardly not get into, just saying the words. And when I retired, in particular, and I was saying Mass, and maybe even before that, I hope. But I thought, wait a minute, it certainly feels different when I'm thinking that I want every word I say to penetrate the person that's out there and me too. And all of a sudden it felt different. It wasn't routine, it wasn't rote. And I remember, especially at baptisms, when I do baptisms, I try to get everybody involved in the baptism and stuff like that. It was fun. And they would, afterwards say, wow, that was different. And I said, what was different? I don't know, you talk to us about it, or whatever. I mean, and a lot of priests do this, please. It's just that there's a lot that don't. And I will say there's not much in the church. No, that's not fair either. All I can say is we have a history of saying things that get in the way of who we're supposed to be. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not, as long as you're saying the words, that's it. And they did that for the good of the people who were looking at the guy who, the priest who they had sex with the other night, doing Mass, I wonder if he really believes, do you have to be sinless to do this? No, but you have to have, well, everybody knows the difference between rote things, words, or intention. Come on.
I think one thing I noticed working with you right away is you don't, and y'all can help me if you want, you invite us in to experience something. You invite us in to your imagination. You right? You're not just giving blah 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 blah. It's come with me. I want to explore this with you.
Yeah, I want you to be inside of me. I want to be inside of you.
What does that sound like?
Yeah, sounds like intimacy for one thing. It's really, it just feels right to do that. What else am I up there doing other than engaging in a ritual? And there's the church is an interesting word. And what we have here right now, this is church. I remember when I went to St. Joseph's, before I was assigned there, I knew I was going to be assigned there. And I ran into someone in the hall and he said, "Oh, Father Fischer, yeah." And she said, "Well, you know, we do something here, that just a bunch of us." I said, "What's that?" "Well, during the homily, we go out because it fits the timing, and we listen to you in the parking lot and come back into the church." And I said, "You got to be kidding. Are you serious?" They said, "Yeah." And then they looked at me and said, "And that's our church. That's church for us." When you get people together and a ministry together that all believe in what these sacraments really are, a promise from God to absolutely manifest what the sacrament celebrates. Eucharist, God in you, baptism, the Holy Spirit coming into you, just like Jesus, and you know that you're favored. Matrimony, the two of you are made one. Confirmation, you're deepening your courage and your commitment to this work of transforming the world into the kingdom of God. And just so when you're doing that, it's like, I mean, I don't want to say anything negative about other people, the way they do religion, but I've had a couple of Protestant ministers in my life saying, "You guys have it so easy." And I said, "What's easy about it?" "Well, you just read everything. You just read the book. I mean, you don't have to give and I said, "Well."
Get the ribbons and the right.
Yeah, get the ribbons. And then I think to myself, "Well, you're right. I don't have to plan something that I think will move you. I have this thing called a sacrament that I believe is more than just words. It's an absolute encounter with divinity. And when you feel something like that in a room, the most common thing you're going to feel is love, union. I'm inside these people. I'm with these people. 90% of the people, I think, not 90%, a great number of people join parishes and think, for what? Community, and then for sacraments and things. But the Pew Research thing said the major reason people choose church to go to is because they want to be a part of a community that thinks like them, that believes the same things. I remember so many times when I could say, this sounds really weird, but sometimes I go into the church at St. Joseph's and one of the other priests was saying Mass, and I had some good assistants while I was there. And I remember feeling a resonance increase as I left the narthex, where there was always at least 10 people with babies. It wasn't much resonance in there. I'd go through the doors, and then the closer I got to the altar, the more I felt the resonance. And I thought, well, why is that? Well, the people that come really early, you know where they sit? Pretty much in the front. And I think, not to make this a judgment against people that sit in the back, but I'm just saying that, there could be something really about being in the resonance of a group of people who believe what this is celebrating is happening to me.
That, as a layperson, I'm kind of curious to know what that's like to talk to a group like this, or talk to a group. How is that a challenge? Is that
not really? It's
these huge.
I don't think I've ever been as confident in what I say as I am now. I don't think I'm the same person that I was before I had my thing in Italy where I almost died. I don't think I'm the same. But I always felt somehow that something was happening between me and you all. Even before I understood any of what I've sort of been talking about, I just knew there was a connection, and I loved it. A lot of it was ego, a lot of it was, I have a voice that's easy to understand, to hear, and then my thoughts are always pretty much, I'll summarize it this way. A priest who met me in the seminary said, you're going to give a homily every time you get up, it's going to be pretty good. I said, really, you think so? He said, because you're so egocentric. I said, oh. You're going, whoop, and boom. But it's true. I don't want to get up and give a lousy homily. I mean, I would just, I just don't want to I don't want to seem like I'm not
Connecting
or good or, to be honest.
Imagine he has all the same fears we do.